My ex used me for rent money while I supported her family, then dumped me for a rich guy and now she regrets everything. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I genuinely believed that helping your partner through hard times was the purest form of love. I grew up watching my mom stretch every dollar and still care for everyone around her, so somewhere along the way I internalized this idea that love meant stepping in, even when it hurt, even when it drained you. So when I met Alyssa, and she looked at me with those tired eyes that carried more fear than hope, something in me clicked, like I'd been preparing my whole life to be someone's anchor. I didn't question it, I didn't hesitate, I just stepped forward because that's what love was supposed to be, right? I met her during one of the most chaotic chapters of her life. She was 2 weeks behind on rent, her phone was blowing up with unpaid bill reminders, and her family kept leaning on her for things she could barely afford. I still remember the night she told me she might get evicted. She tried so hard to be strong, but the moment her voice cracked and she whispered, "I don't know what to do anymore," something in my chest tightened. I pulled her close and said, "You're not alone anymore. I've got you." And I meant it with everything in me. Helping her felt natural, almost instinctive. When she finally broke down and said, "I can't lose my home," I stepped in and covered her rent with the promise that it was temporary. Just a month or two. Just until she got back on her feet. But that wasn't the end of it. Her parents needed rides. Her little brother needed school supplies. Groceries were low. Her dad needed medication, just this once. And without even realizing it, I became the one plugging every hole in a sinking ship that wasn't even mine. Back then, it felt noble. Loving. Right. But I had no idea I was laying the foundation for a trap she was quietly building around me. I didn't notice the shift at first, it happened slowly, almost quietly, like a soft tide pulling me deeper without me realizing how far I'd waded. What started as helping Alyssa through a rough patch turned into helping her family, because apparently, they were always in some kind of crisis. Her mom would say things like, "You're such a blessing, sweetheart," while hinting that her medication was late again. Her dad would casually mention the electricity bill being overdue, then follow it up with, "But you already do so much, we hate to even ask." And yet somehow, I always ended up stepping in, because Alyssa would look at me with that worried expression that made me want to fix everything. It got to a point where her little brother wouldn't even ask her for things, he'd come straight to me. "Do you think you could help with my school project? Could we stop by the store? Alyssa said you might grab groceries." And I'd just do it. I told myself it felt good to help. I told myself this was what a committed partner would do. But sometimes, late at night, I'd sit in my car after buying groceries and feel this strange tightness in my chest, like something inside me knew I was giving too much, but I didn't want to admit it. Whenever I hesitated, even for a second, Alyssa would get quiet, her voice soft and trembly. "I just feel like everything is on my shoulders," she'd say. "I don't know what I'd do without you." And that was all it took to shove aside any doubt and keep giving. But their comfort grew quickly. Too quickly. Her parents started calling me directly whenever something went wrong, like I was some kind of on-demand emergency fund. Alyssa would smile and say, "We're like family now, right? Families help each other." And I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something in the way they leaned on me felt less like love, and more like the beginning of a pattern I wasn't prepared for. I wish I could say the first red flag was subtle, but it wasn't. Looking back, it was bright enough to blind me. It started the day Alyssa told me she needed a few new things to boost her confidence. I thought she meant a haircut or maybe a new outfit for work, but instead she took me to a boutique where everything looked like it belonged in some influencer's closet. When I gently said, "This is a little expensive, don't you think?" she stiffened, crossed her arms, and whispered, "So you don't want me to look good?" The guilt hit me instantly, like I'd insulted her without meaning to. I caved, bought everything she eyed, and told myself it was just a treat. But the real warning came a week later. One of her coworkers recognized me in the parking lot and casually said, "Oh, Alyssa hasn't been coming in much lately." Everything okay? My stomach dropped. She had told me her boss cut her hours so drastically that she could barely buy food. That night, when I asked, "Why did your coworker say you barely go in?" she snapped upright, eyes narrowed. "Are you spying on me now?" she shouted. "Do you think I'm lazy?" The room went silent, thick with her anger and my confusion. Then came the tears, loud, messy, overwhelming. "I'm mentally exhausted," she sobbed. "Work is toxic. I just needed a break." And just like that, my doubt dissolved into guilt again. Still, something felt off. She spent more time getting ready, more money on things she claimed made her feel worthy, and less time actually working. Whenever I tried to bring it up, she hit me with, "I'm doing my best," or, "You always assume the worst." I didn't want to be the bad guy. I didn't want to be unsupportive. So I shoved the discomfort down and told myself real love meant patience. I couldn't see it then, but she wasn't testing my loyalty, she was testing how much she could get away with. The shift from helping to expected happened so slowly that by the time I noticed it, the line had already disappeared. It started when Alyssa's lease was up for renewal, and she casually mentioned the rent increase like it was a minor inconvenience. She didn't even look up from her phone when she said, "They're raising it by $250. Can you cover it? Just until things settle." The casualness of it stunned me. No discussion. No hesitation. Just an assumption that I'd pick it up, because of course I would. Her parents followed the same pattern. They stopped asking politely and started speaking to me like I was part of their financial system. The water bill's late again, her dad would mutter, handing me the envelope before I even responded. Her mom would sigh dramatically whenever groceries ran low, pacing the kitchen until I finally said, "I'll go get some." It was like everyone had collectively agreed that I existed to make their problems disappear. My savings were draining faster than I could replenish them, and I felt a quiet panic building beneath my ribs. One night I told Alyssa, "I'm getting stretched thin. I can't keep covering everything." She didn't get angry, she got cold. Detached. She stared at me for a long moment and said, "I thought you cared about us." Us. Not her. Us. As if loving her meant taking responsibility for her entire household. Then came the announcement I never saw coming, "I quit my job today." She said it while stretching on the couch, like she'd just come back from a yoga class, not walked away from her only source of income. "I need a mental reset," she added, waving off my concern. "I'll look for something better soon." Soon never came. Every passing day, her expectations grew. Her entitlement thickened. And the more uncomfortable I felt, the more I told myself that this was just another phase. Another storm I had to weather because that's what partners did. But it wasn't a phase. It was a setup, one I was sinking deeper into without realizing how little ground I had left beneath me. The strangest part was how quickly Alyssa shifted from barely holding things together to acting like she was living some polished, luxury lifestyle. She quit her job, claimed she needed time to heal, yet suddenly she wanted high-end skincare, designer clothes, and weekly salon appointments. The same woman who used to panic over a $20 late fee now expected $300 dinners, for the aesthetic. When I hesitated, she'd roll her eyes and say things like, "You don't understand, this is how successful people manifest better opportunities." It felt absurd. But somehow, she always said it with such conviction that I questioned if I was the unreasonable one. She also started hanging out with a new group of people, co-workers of friends, influencers she barely knew, people whose lives revolved around curated photos and curated lies. I'd hear names I'd never heard before. She'd say things like, "They invited me to a rooftop mixer," or, "They think I have potential." And I'd just nod, even when a knot formed in my stomach. One night she came home smelling like expensive perfume I didn't recognize, laughing too loudly as she stumbled through the door. When I asked, "Why didn't you answer my texts?" she waved her hand dismissively. "Oh my God, relax. It was just girl stuff. But it wasn't just girl stuff. She was becoming someone I barely recognized, someone obsessed with optics, status, attention. Someone who needed to look like she belonged to a lifestyle I couldn't afford and she didn't earn. And then there were the late-night messages. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and see her phone light up with notifications, names I'd never seen, emojis that felt too flirtatious to ignore. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd smile without looking up and say, "Don't be insecure. That's not attractive." I felt something slipping, something between us, something in me. But every time I tried to talk about it, she'd make me feel paranoid or dramatic. I didn't know it yet, but this lifestyle upgrade wasn't random. It was the first shadow of the person who would replace me. It happened on a Tuesday night, one of those dull, heavy evenings where the world feels quiet enough for truth to slip through the cracks. Alyssa was in the bathroom getting ready to meet the girls, music blasting while I sat on the couch scrolling through emails. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't suspicious. I was tired, worn out, trying to convince myself things would stabilize eventually. Then her phone, left face up on the cushion beside me, lit up with a message that made my entire stomach drop. It was from someone named Evan, and all it said was, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." For a moment, I just stared at it, like maybe I misread it, maybe it wasn't what it obviously was. When she walked out, adjusting her earrings, I held up the phone and quietly asked, "Who's Evan?" Her expression didn't flicker. Didn't twitch. She simply scoffed like I was the one being ridiculous. "That's my cousin," she said flatly. "Seriously? You're going through my messages now?" Her tone wasn't defensive, it was annoyed, like I'd interrupted her night with something trivial. But her lie cracked faster than she expected. 2 days later, a mutual friend pulled me aside at the grocery store. "Hey, is Alyssa really dating that older dude?" she asked. My heart thudded in my chest. "What older dude?" I said. And that's when everything snapped into place. Alyssa had been talking to a wealthy man she met through her influencer friends, someone who sent her gifts, paid for her nights out, and told her she deserved better. He had money. Real money. The kind she fantasized about. The kind I could never compete with. That night, when I confronted her again, she didn't even pretend. She folded her arms and said, "I just want a higher lifestyle. You can't give me that." Her words hit harder than any punch. In that moment, I realized something terrifying: I had never been her partner. I had been her stepping stone. I wish I could say the breakup was a slow unraveling, but it wasn't. She ripped the cord out like she'd been waiting for the moment. It happened 2 days after our confrontation. She walked into the living room, dropped her purse on the couch, and said, "I think we should take a break," with the same tone someone uses to mention they're switching shampoo brands. No emotion. No hesitation. Just a clean announcement that my place in her life had expired. I remember asking, "Why now?" and she shrugged, brushing lint off her jeans as she muttered, "I just need someone who matches my energy." That night, she posted a picture on Instagram, her in a dimly lit rooftop bar, body angled toward a man whose hand rested casually on her waist. The caption read, "New beginnings." Watching the likes roll in felt like standing in the middle of a crowd while someone stripped me bare. People commented heart emojis, fire emojis, "You two look great together," like the past year of my life didn't exist. Her family's reaction hurt even more. The same parents who called me for every crisis, the same people whose bills I quietly covered, suddenly blocked me on everything. No explanation. No gratitude. Just digital erasure. It was like they were afraid I might disrupt her new upgrade. The humiliation hit hardest the next morning. I went to grab coffee, and a barista who followed Alyssa online gave me this apologetic look and said, "Hey man, sorry you had to find out like that." I didn't even know what to say. I just nodded and walked out, feeling like my insides had been scooped out. Everywhere I turned, there she was, laughing in a new dress, clinking glasses in fancy restaurants, posing beside this older, wealthier guy who seemed to hand her a life she had always wanted. And I was left alone with the sinking realization that she hadn't chosen him over me. She had chosen money over everything I ever was. But I didn't know yet, her perfect new life was already cracking. Rock bottom doesn't arrive all at once, it sinks in slowly, like water filling a room until you're suddenly gasping for air. A week after the breakup, I opened my banking app and felt my chest tighten. Months of supporting Alyssa, her rent, her family's endless emergencies, it had wiped out almost everything I'd saved. My own rent was overdue. My car needed repairs I couldn't afford. And for the first time in years, I felt genuinely scared about how I was going to keep myself afloat. I had spent so long patching holes in someone else's life that I didn't realize mine had been flooding. I picked up every extra shift I could, working late nights that left me too exhausted to feel anything except the ache in my body. But the emotional fallout hit harder. I'd lie in bed at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering how I became the guy who gave everything and ended up with nothing. Sometimes I'd hear her laugh in my memories, soft, manipulative, sweet, and I'd get sick to my stomach realizing how deeply she had played me. I wasn't just mourning the relationship. I was mourning the version of myself who thought love like that was noble. Friends tried to help. "Dude, block her and move on," they'd say, but grief doesn't respond to logic. One night my friend Mark sat beside me on the curb outside my apartment, the air cold enough to sting. "You didn't lose someone good," he said quietly. "You lost someone who used you." I nodded, but the words didn't fully land. Not yet. I kept replaying everything, every bill I paid, every time she cried to get her way, every moment I ignored my own discomfort. And the worst part? I felt ashamed that I let it happen. Ashamed that I confused manipulation for love. Ashamed that when she left, she didn't just take my money, she took pieces of my self-worth with her. But while I was drowning in the aftermath, her glossy new life was starting to rot behind the scenes. I just didn't know it yet. I didn't hear about her downfall directly from her, of course not. It came in fragments, little cracks in the polished image she worked so hard to create online. At first, I noticed her Instagram posts slowing down. No more rooftop dinners. No more shopping bags from places I couldn't even pronounce. Just vague quotes, dimly lit mirror photos, and captions like, "Protect your peace." It was the kind of shift that tells you someone's life isn't as shiny as they want people to think. But I ignored it. Or at least, I tried to. Then one weekend, a mutual friend, Jenna, texted me out of nowhere. "Are you sitting down?" she wrote. I joked back, "Should I be worried?" She replied with a voice note instead. Her tone was low, almost apologetic. "So, Alyssa's new guy?" "Yeah, he's not who she thought he was." I didn't respond. I just listened, jaw tightening as Jenna continued. "He's super controlling. Like, he micromanages everything, what she wears, who she's allowed to follow, when she can go out." The idea of Alyssa, who once screamed at me for suggesting she budget, being monitored like a teenager felt surreal. Almost ironic. Jenna told me the guy had a pattern. He'd sweep women off their feet with expensive gifts and attention, love-bomb them until they felt chosen, and then slowly tighten the leash. One wrong move, one hint of disobedience, and the gift stopped. Then the dates. Then the affection. "She's basically on call for him," Jenna said. "And if she doesn't jump when he says jump, he pulls everything back." For the first time, I didn't feel anger or bitterness. I felt a cold, hollow clarity. She hadn't just traded me for someone richer, she had traded me for someone who saw her exactly how she saw me, as a tool. And the life she thought she leveled up into? It was starting to crumble beneath her feet. Her downfall didn't crash in all at once, it leaked out slowly, the same way mine had, except this time I wasn't the one holding anything together. I first heard the real breaking point from Jenna again, her voice tinged with a mix of pity and disbelief. "He kicked her out," she said bluntly. I remember sitting there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the wall while her words echoed. "What do you mean, kicked her out?" I asked. Jenna sighed. "Exactly what it sounds like. One day she didn't answer his texts fast enough, so he told her to pack her things and leave his condo. No discussion. No warning. Nothing. It didn't surprise me, not really. I had seen the kind of man he was through the cracks Jenna revealed. But hearing it confirmed felt like watching someone who pushed me off a cliff finally slip on the same edge. According to Jenna, he replaced her within a week. A week. Another younger woman, another shiny new accessory for his curated lifestyle. Alyssa had become disposable, swapped out like a handbag that no longer matched the outfit. Her family, the same people who once treated me like a walking ATM, didn't welcome her home with open arms. Jenna told me they'd been drowning financially ever since I disappeared. Her dad had lost his part-time job. Her mom had medical expenses piling up. And without me quietly patching their lives together, everything unraveled fast. When Alyssa showed up at their door with her bags, they didn't say, "We missed you," or "We're here for you." They said, "You ruined everything." Hearing that twisted something deep inside me, not satisfaction, but a strange, heavy sadness. Not for her decisions, but for the version of her I once believed in. The girl who cried about eviction. The girl I held and cared for. She was gone long before she ever left me. Alyssa bounced between friends' couches, her social media going dark except for cryptic posts about fake people and hard lessons. Her life, once loud and glittering, had gone silent. And slowly, painfully, she was starting to realize what she'd thrown away. It was almost midnight when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't saved but still recognized instantly. For a moment, I just stared at it, thumb hovering, torn between curiosity and the instinct to let it ring. But something in me, maybe closure, maybe old habit, made me answer. The moment I said hello, all I heard was crying. Not polite, restrained tears, the kind of sobbing that makes words fall apart. "I messed up," she choked out. "Please, please don't hang up." Her voice dragged up memories I had spent weeks trying to bury. I sat there in the dark, listening as she unraveled. "Everything fell apart," she whispered. "He used me. My family won't help. I have nowhere to go." There was this desperation in her tone, the same desperation she once used when she needed rent money or groceries or a ride across town. Only now, it wasn't calculated. It was real. Raw. Broken. We agreed to meet at a small cafe the next afternoon. The moment she walked in, I barely recognized her. No designer clothes. No full glam makeup. Just an oversized sweatshirt, faded jeans, and eyes that looked bruised from crying. She sat across from me, fingers trembling as she wrapped them around her cup. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she said softly. "I chose the wrong person. I didn't see what I had. I didn't see you." For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I just watched her, this stripped-down version of the woman who once made me feel like I wasn't enough. She reached across the table, her voice cracking. "Can we start over? I've changed. I swear. I just need someone who cares." And that was the moment I finally saw the truth with absolute clarity. She didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because she had nowhere else left to go. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I owed her anything. She waited for my answer with this fragile, expectant look, like the version of me she once controlled would suddenly reappear and rescue her again. But he was gone. I took a breath, feeling a steadiness inside myself I hadn't felt in months. "Alyssa," I said quietly, "I cared about you. I cared so much it nearly destroyed me. But I can't go back to that." Her face crumpled instantly, like she'd been bracing for a different ending. "Please," she whispered, eyes filling. "I know I messed up. I know I was selfish. But we can fix this. Just give me another chance." For the first time, her words didn't pull at me. They didn't stir guilt or nostalgia. They just floated. Empty. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindictive. I just felt done, completely, peacefully done. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You threw me away. And now that I'm finally climbing out of the damage, I'm not going back in." She shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Don't say that, please don't say that. You're all I have left." But that was the moment I realized something important. I didn't owe her a home just because she burned all her bridges. I stood up, gathering my jacket, and her voice rose in panic. "Wait, don't leave. Just talk to me. I'll do better. I'll change. I swear." The cafe was quiet except for her trembling breaths. I paused for a second, not out of doubt, but out of respect for the version of myself who once loved her. "I hope you figure things out," I said softly. "But I'm not your solution anymore." I walked out, and for the first time since everything fell apart, the air felt lighter. In the months that followed, my life slowly rebuilt itself. I got a better job, paid off my debts, found stability again. I even began liking myself, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, the only updates I heard about Alyssa were whispers. She was working low hours, couch hopping, still supporting a family that drained her just like she drained me. She had traded real love for a fantasy. Now she lived in the consequences of her choices. And she regretted it every single day.